All right, we are in April already, folks, and that's nuts. Winter seemed long, and now it's gone in the rearview mirror, and we are moving on heavy and hard into 2026. And coming off this beginning of this year with a big bang when it comes to Iran and the situation we've got going on over there. Now, I'm going to say this first and foremost because I cannot stand the left-right paradigm politics in this country. It's asinine, it's a distraction, it's a tool used to create division between people of the nation rather than unification against those that actually want to do us harm. And it breeds extreme rhetoric on either side of the aisle. More than just rhetoric, it breeds extremism as far as like thoughts and ideologies, which are very dangerous. When common sense and reason are out the window because the ideology becomes the only thing important to hold on to for dear life, you go down some roads that are ugly, ugly, ugly. And it's a sign of a dying empire, which we are in the current form undoubtedly heading down that road. Now, how long is that road? I don't know. Is it a 5-mile road or is it a 500-mile road? How long will that situation take? Is there a detour? Is there an off-ramp? I don't know, but I'm going to say some criticisms of Mr. Trump in this video, which is why I'm prefacing it with this, because we live in a world where, oh, you said something bad about Lindsey Graham, you must be a Democrat, or you said something bad about Adam Schiff, you must be a Republican, and it's just nonsense, guys. It's absolutely nonsense. When somebody does something, regardless of whether the Tea Party, the Green Party, Independent Party, left, right, doesn't matter. They do something that deserves praise, they get it. They deserve something or they say something that deserves criticism, they will receive that. And I'm not going to pretend I know all the angles that are at play here, but this is on the surface, this appears to be one of the absolute dumbest, most asinine things anyone could ever have decided to do, was to engage in an armed conflict with Iran. Now, we won't get into it in this video, but I think there's a backhanded reason that it has been done, I hope. And if it's done for that reason, it's absolutely genius. But on the surface, it appears asinine. Now, Trump basically announced yesterday that we're looking at a continued engagement as far as hitting Iran's military, energy, whatever targets they deem necessary. Going forward. So that looks like, at least for the next month, I would say into May, there is no peace or resolution to this conflict. And we are already at the point where the ripple effects are greater than that which we saw in the COVID shutdown and lockdown. COVID shutdown and lockdown was like governments all working together, and they controlled that very well. They kept open what they wanted to keep open. They kept the gears moving. Instituted the right amount of fear to their populaces, right? This is a wild card because this is not a coordinated global event. This is what we'd call a wild card. COVID was not a wild card as far as government. I mean, it was a wild card for citizenry. It was not a wild card for governments. So, that being said, obviously energy prices drive everything in our modern society, especially when we run a financial and trading system internationally that revolves on us sending them our corn and them sending us their corn, rather than just eating our own corn, so that financial instruments and derivatives can be profited off by the middleman bankers. And so, we are very susceptible with our global supply chains to events like this having catastrophic ripple effects, and it is happening right now. Our country is doing 1,000 times better than most, at least here in the early days. Australia is almost completely out of various fuels, which means they're almost completely out of food in many regions because the trucking has almost come to a screeching halt. And they're just one of another 3 or 4 dozen countries that are at a point of critical desperation when it comes to supplying their citizenry with everything that they need. So now that we know, or appears to know, that we have another 2 or 3 weeks, we will go ahead and address the first elephant in the room, and that is the ignorance of the American people in thinking that Iran is anything like Afghanistan, anything like Iraq. They're part of the original seven. When we started when we started the International War on Terror, they were one of seven countries, along with Libya, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan. There's two more on there. I can't recall what they are off the top of my head. But basically, they were on the chopping block for westernization, for flipping the regime change, instituting XYZ Western government, and that's because they're like a pivot point, right? As you can see, they're aligned with Russia and China, so that was part of when I say our, I mean the royal Western hemisphere: Europe, United States, Israel. Okay. So they prepared as such. They not only prepared very heavily militarily, they instituted many advancements in drone technology, missile technology, defensive civil defense systems, and they don't have a top-down structure like Iraq did. Iraq had kind of a top-down military and government all intertwined in one, and you could kind of chop the head off the snake on that one. It's more medieval in its form. And so you could chop the head off the snake and more or less decapitate the command structure, which we did. And so Iran saw that and said, yeah, we're not doing it that way. So there's numerous fail-safes to where you can't remove, even if you remove 24 people in power, each individual responsibility operates autonomously with its own individual command structure. So that basically, if no one could communicate with anybody, if people were gone, wiped out, couldn't be heard from, everyone had their assignments. And those were to be carried out, autonomously. Without question, this is what you do, and you're going to carry out your mission regardless of confirmation from anyone else, because it's a pre-planned structure, decentralized structure. And so that is at play right now. So you can't topple this government in the same way we have done other regime changes. Also, I'd like to remind, Iran has 90 million people. And outside of Turkey, they are the most powerful Middle Eastern military. Not only from like ground troops, I mean, they don't have crap for Navy, right? We pretty much destroyed that. But their missile technology, drone technology is second to none in the region. Like I said, they're right there with Turkey, and you don't want to get in a war with Turkey. Not to mention Erdogan's a crazy man, but and we probably lost Turkey as an ally in the midst of all this with numerous other people. So I say that to just, people have a very you're talking 750,000 plus missiles that Iran has underground. And you hear a lot of the media narrative that, oh, Iran's going to run out of missiles. Not going to happen. Israel actually has pretty much ran out of missiles, and that is because they have maybe 1-2 missiles for every 25, 50 Iranian missiles. Now, Iran implements more like a distraction sort of concept when they have missile attacks. So their goal is to launch a $200,000 rocket and have it intercepted by a $5 million interceptor missile. And, you do that enough time, well, Israel doesn't have that many interceptor missiles. It just is what it is. And those are more or less completely out. There's been multiple recent strikes in the last week or two where there have been no interceptor missiles deployed because that area or that defense system is completely out of operational interceptors. And Israel has always thought they just have us in their back pocket. So their thing was to create defense systems that win headlines rather than win wars, to make their country feel safe and secure when they are not. And then they go around acting like a belligerent drunk, thinking they can do whatever they want and there won't be consequences. Well, on its face, like I said, this seems like Israel drugged the United States into this as a willing participant, I will add. And there is a 0% chance that we come out victorious. We might withdraw and save face with some headlines like we hit X, Y, and Z structure. We set their nuclear enrichment program back 100 years. They're never gonna, get a nuke, which is just pure nonsense. It's not the actual reason this happened in the first place. The reason this happened in the first place is because Israel, when Netanyahu came to the United States and addressed the political leaders said that their missile technology. It was not about nukes. It was about pretty much the point of view that Iran was having missile superiority to them and Israel was no longer safe. And so that's why they needed the United States to come in to this war, because Israel couldn't carry on doing what they've done in Gaza and their other little regional skirmishes there, and have Iran watching over their shoulder, kind of saying, okay, don't push it too far or we're going to retaliate. And Iran has a significant more capacity for offensive firepower than Israel does at this point. Not to mention, logistics win war, people. Logistics win wars, and we are, we now have multiple of these Middle Eastern countries who are not allowing us to station equipment. We have European countries which are not allowing us to fly weapons or station equipment. And when this is all said and done, we will not be allowed back into the Middle East. And that was kind of my backdoor thing at the beginning of the video. I think that's part of Trump's intention. We're heading to a point where we have political spheres that are not going to go, east to west. They're going to go north to south. So you're going to have the United States, Canada, Mexico, Central, South America, right? This is why you see the action in Venezuela. You have the action in Ecuador. You have the action in Mexico, because that is the northern sphere, or the North American sphere of influence is going to go north and south. We probably won't even have any military equipment stationed in Europe. Now, I'm not saying it by next year. I'm just saying, further down the line. Then you're going to have Russia's sphere of influence, and you're going to have China's sphere of influence, which sort of butt up to each other, but Russia's the only one strong enough to hold back China. Because, maybe they're aligned on some stuff right now, but as soon as NATO falls, China cannot be trusted, and Russia knows that. In 1993, they almost went to war over water. So, Russia's going to and should be heavily aligned with Europe and those northern Middle Eastern countries. Russia is required for Europe to have any kind of industrial capacity in manufacturing. They need Russia. They need the cheap energy. They need the raw resources. And in many cases, they need the manufacturing capabilities, because one thing, a country like Germany can't do is it can't fill its country full of low-grade manufacturing. It's going to manufacture high-end precision instruments, and anything below that is going to have to be outsourced, not only by materials, but also the footprints to run that, especially since energy costs are significantly higher in a country like Germany than it is in a country like Russia. And when it's all said and done, Brussels, the United Kingdom, will have a significantly lower political influence. They'll basically be relegated to, Europe proper at that point, because there's going to be no reason. There's no reason Russia listens to a fucking thing that London says. Not one reason. Same with China. So this is, quite frankly, what's occurring right now with Iran is, however this thing ends, and I'm hoping it ends more along the lines of what I'm talking about, and not full-blown World War III, because that's really what it's looking like. We're not going to address that in this video, but almost every indication is that that's where it's going, unless, basically political pressure from all these other countries that are being affected. These countries don't want their populaces up in arms because they can't get affordable groceries or affordable energy. So it might just be political pressure that puts a stop to this, but we'll see. It certainly is a moving and fluid situation, and it's pointing towards a very expensive summer. And if we keep pushing, we have gotten the threats, we will have increased domestic terrorism activity here, and who knows to what extremes or what levels that might reach. But we know we've got 18,000 plus Iranian sleeper cells in this country as it stands right now, and it doesn't take much to disable part of a grid or to launch an attack on a sports venue. I mean, there's endless amounts of ways that, even if there's not a lot of attacks, the level of fear can be cranked up to 11. So I'm going to end it on that. But guys, this is not going anywhere right now, and conduct yourselves accordingly, and just prepare yourself the best you can. And the hope is that there is some saving a face retreat that both sides can do to get the economy and the energy back on track, so that the Middle East can can continue to provide its energy reserves to the rest of the world, because without it, man, things are getting bleak. Thank you. Bye.